Welcome everyone to this very special discussion about hospice with one of my dearest friends, Gail Pope and Carol Hulse from BrightHaven. And before we get into this really beautiful discussion about hospice and about what BrightHaven does, I just want to do a little introduction of Gail and Carol. So, of course, Gail has been an incredibly close friend and a huge catalyst. I'm getting emotional, a huge catalyst for animal Reiki for Kathleen. Brighthaven was where Kathleen started teaching. It really gave her a platform to expand animal Reiki. She's been able to teach thousands of students thanks to Brighthaven. And Gail is the president and founder of BrightHaven. And BrightHaven has a much longer name. BrightHaven is called BrightHaven Center for Animal Rescue, Hospice, and Holistic Education in California. And for over 30 years, Gail has helped senior and special needs animals on a journey of holistic healing all the way through hospice care and transition. Gail's work in the world of animal health care, hospice, and natural dying is widely acclaimed. She is an international consultant and is contacted by many vets worldwide and animal caregivers regarding Brighthaven's natural methods and protocols. She is one of the founding partners, instructors, and mentors of the Animal Hospice Group. She has proudly served on the SARA Board of Directors since 2016. But of course, BrightHaven was one of our very first, was the very first animal SARA animal organization to join, and that was back in 2008. And she has also held various board positions at the International Association for Animal Hospice and Palliative Care. She is also a faculty member of Holistic Actions for Companion Animals. And to help educate the public, Gail has authored 6 books available on Amazon that address various aspects of animal hospice and caring for older animals. And BrightHaven provides a very comprehensive education program that includes online self-paced animal hospice courses. So thank you so much for being here, Gail. And now we have Carol. And Carol, what I love most, so Carol is the education program manager at BrightHaven, where she works very closely with Gail. They're really partners in this. And she's Gail's right-hand person, and she's been such a big catalyst in getting animal hospice out to the public since she joined. But she works closely with Gail to share BrightHaven's animal hospice expertise and their transformative menu for healing. But she learned about hospice and animal Reiki when she took Kathleen's Animal Reiki 1, level 1 class back in 2010. And that really changed her life. And I was so excited to read that because actually Carol's been doing Animal Reiki almost as long as I have. So Carol has dedicated herself to supporting animals and their caregivers, blending creativity and intuition to help them live well through every stage of life. Her book, Walking My Dog Through, parentheses, End of Life, chronicles her journey with her beloved dog, Silver, and the profound impact of BrightHaven's compassionate hospice principles. So welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being here. And I just want to jump right into this because I know Carol has a hard stop at 11:30, and I want to get through as much as possible. So Gail, I'm just going to start with you. What led BrightHaven into animal hospice?
Good grief. That's an awfully long answer. It'd probably take 2 or 3 hours to do that. But first of all, thank you, Leah. Wow, you almost made me cry too. Sorry, I'm so nervous. I haven't done this before. So, what led BrightHaven into animal hospice? My life, I guess the word is life. The other word is destiny. If you'd show me a book now of my life, I wouldn't, when I was younger, I would not have believed that it was possible. I think destiny, serendipity stepped in when I was 5 years old. Apparently, I told my mum and dad that when I grew up, I was going to be an air hostess lady and an animal doctor. And as I look back over the years, I never quite achieved either, but I got really, really close to both of them. Of course, the years went by. I met Richard, my husband, when I was 16. And I worked in the airlines for 25 years in England until Richard was transferred to California, which was really exciting change in our life. So that was the first part of the prediction of the 5-year-old. However, I was approaching the age of 40, I guess, when we came to America with no idea what I would do with the rest of my life. My career was just not in a place I could continue with that. And so it became a family joke, what's mum going to do with the rest of her life? Long story, but I suddenly had a really out of the blue revelation one day that I wanted to rescue cats. And so that led to an organization called Cats Are People Too, which led straight into the arms of becoming BrightHaven when we started realizing more and more animals. We don't only need to rescue cats. However, the focus for CAPT was rescue and adoption. And gradually our intake stayed more resident and they gradually got older, and it morphed into, we need to just have a sanctuary. We can't do this just as a rescue. Plus, our hearts were breaking every time we adopted an animal, and selfishly, we knew we couldn't do that. So we dived in, and out of nowhere, serendipity followed us all the way, because various people came into my life unexpectedly and unwelcomely, actually, for the most part, because I had a very conventional upbringing and everything was very conventional in my life. But one by one, they would come along and show me a miracle of healing or a this or a that. And so I kind of got dragged along through the path, which eventually led to the menu for healing that you mentioned, until it led to the work that we were just doing. And it was what it was. And it was absolutely, still is absolutely wonderful. And I had a phone call one day, picked up the phone, and a voice said, "Oh, hello, my name's Dr. Ella Biddle. May I speak to Gail Pope?" And I said, "Yes, speaking." And she said, "Oh, I'm so glad. I just wanted to talk to you about animal hospice. We're hoping to form a new organization, international association, and we want you to join us." And I said right away, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I think you've got the wrong person. I'm not interested." And she said, "Well, I was told that you care for generally older, sicker, infirm animals, animals who are in the last chapter of life, and they mostly live long lives and they die peacefully and naturally for the most part. Did I get that wrong?" And I said, "No, but we're not about death. We're all about life, and hospice is all about death, and I don't want any part of it." And that's where the conversation began. So that's what happened at that time. And that was, gosh, I think that was probably almost around the time that I knew you. Maybe just before. I can't remember exactly, but Carol will probably remember, but it's kind of irrelevant. But as I look back now, nothing in my life was planned. None of the things that BrightHaven do were originally my plan to do. But, destiny stepped in, and a lot of wonderful people and equally wonderful and amazing animals taught me lessons all the way along.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I love
But
that. Love
I'll
that.
shut up now.
I love that so much, Gail. Well, and then, of course, speaking of people, lovely people in your life that have helped along the way, Carol, this is a great segue to you. What led you to animal hospice and being such a huge part of BrightHaven? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, Carol. I'm going to ask you to unmute because sometimes it's easier.
I think Gail's comments about destiny really explain a lot. My dog, Silver, is probably led me on this journey. She came into my life 3 weeks to the date before my wonderful husband died. And her presence in my life got me through probably one of the most difficult times of my life. And my gratitude for the comfort and companionship that she gave me inspired me to, I want to give back to animals and help them live their best lives. And so that first took the form of canine warm water therapy. I went up to Washington and took a great class, but I still wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. And then when I was back in the Bay Area, I did a mentorship in canine warm water therapy, and one of the homework assignments was a book on massage. In the last chapter, he mentioned, I don't even remember the author or anything, but he mentioned energy medicine, and I kind of to myself went, ugh, energy medicine. And then I think my next mentor, the assignment I was given was to read one of Kathleen's early books about animal Reikis. And that I was just, that changed my life. I was just so thrilled to find that book and the information, and to have a way to help animals that could do no harm, that was gentle, that could help in so many ways. So I was thrilled that she gave classes in the Bay Area. And I thought, okay, BrightHaven, I don't know about them. I'll go up, a friend of mine signed up for her Kathleen's Reiki 1 class in May 2010. And we got there early because driving north on 101, you never know. And I was sitting outside before the class started, and all of a sudden this voice feeling combination came over me and said, "You're going to work with BrightHaven someday." And I kind of went, "What?" I hadn't even learned about BrightHaven really yet. So then when I saw the, class started and I saw the great video and that music, my heart was captured. And I did Kathleen's second animal Reiki level 2 class later that year, and the two have been intertwined ever since. And I didn't know that much about animal hospice early on, but I think my experience with my husband in hospice, I quickly learned that animal and human hospice are very, very similar. And something kept saying, pursue animal hospice, and I did, and here we are.
Well, thank you so much for that, Carol. And thank you. I'm so glad that, it's so funny hearing this. Animals lead us, just like what Gail was saying, animals lead us to where we need to be. We don't even have to think about it. Sometimes it's just like they're going to be there, just like Silver did that for you. So thank you so much for that. And so, Gail, I have a question for you. Because hospice is kind of a charged word. Why do you think people find that word so scary?
Well, it's kind of obvious, and it's something that I think we all do, because in this culture, this world that we live in, the biggest fear is of not everybody, obviously, but of the masses, is death. And hospice equates in most people's language to fear. It's all about the fear of what's in the future, and we don't know. And I think even those of us who have very much more of a spiritual bent in their life, maybe, we still have that innate fear of what it is. It's interesting, when we come into this world as babies, it's kind of the reverse transition. And yet, just a silly thought just came into my head. I wonder if we fear the birth. And that, on the other side, we're like, oh God, this is going to be dreadful. I wonder how much it's going to hurt and all of those things. But I think the sad part is that we're so scared of death that we try to stop it. And the medical industry is wonderful, both holistic and conventional, but it becomes a focus to cure and to save the life. And that's one of the things that I particularly love about hospice, particularly from human hospice, where it teaches you that it's about comfort. It's not about cure. It's about, well, for BrightHaven, it's about offering healing for the highest good, in the knowledge that could be for continued life, or it could be for transition to whatever's coming next. I guess it's about finding balance for ourselves. I guess the greatest lesson is love for self and another. And we've just had so many animals that have taught us so much about death and our fear of it. I guess, I don't know if I've got time for a quick story, but Mariah was my very, very, very first peaceful and natural death. And how do I make it so quick and short? She was in her 20s. She was the most beautiful thin, emaciated black cat who was destined to die at any moment. And I worked for a vet at that time, and it was very clear to me that she was getting really close to it's that time. And so on this particular day, I knew it was time. And so I needed to leave the sanctuary and go to the vet where I worked and have her euthanized. And so I called a special volunteer who'd helped us along the way. Still, oh my gosh, so much. And I called her and asked if she could come and babysit so I could take Mariah. And she said, no, I'm sorry, I'm unavailable. But let me see if I can help you. And I was in a complete total panic. No, she's dying. I was really distraught. And she said, okay, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to put your arms around her. You're going to take her out in the garden, and you're going to sit under the big old oak tree at the front. And you're just going to be with her. Just be with her. And I really had no choice. And I was more scared, actually, than I probably am now doing this. But I had no option. So I did. And we were there for maybe an hour or so. And they were some of the loveliest and yet the scariest moments of my life, while I didn't know what was going to happen. And it was like the big bad wolf is going to leap from behind the tree at any minute. Happily, the big bad wolf stayed right where he was. And eventually, Mariah, she kind of shifted in my arms, and she turned her head and she looked into my eyes. She gave a little sigh, and that was it. She'd gone. I burst into floods and floods of tears. And I hate to admit this now, but I understand it. For the next probably 2 or 3 months, I felt guilt. I felt a huge guilt that I'd let her die. And yet it was only afterwards, eventually, when I took myself off the ledge, that I realized it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. And so that really set me on a different path. That really, really set me on a different path.
Well, and so we're talking a little bit about this, and thank you so much for sharing that story. I have a feeling we're gonna have a lot of tears today. But before we have a great question about what your menu is for healing, but before we get into that, and maybe this kind of actually talks about it, is what we kind of know what hospice for humans looks like. It's usually when you're saying no to all medical care and you're just keeping that person comfortable. What does it look like, and how is it like? How do we see hospice for animals?
How do you mean exactly?
Well, like, so if so when do we know it's time for hospice? Like, so I have this 16-year-old pit bull. Like, when, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yes.
we know,
Yes.
oh, is it time for hospice? Like, so I think I'm just asking, I don't truly understand what hospice means, or like when to go, okay, yeah, it's time for hospice now.
Okay. I think it's evolved to be a different thing because, again, the focus tends to be on death. I think when the focus changes for us, I'm having to think my way through this, but when the focus changes for us from trying to cure, basically, to actually using modern medicine, using holistic medicine for life, for comfort care, to be comfortable, not planning on doing more surgeries or invasive procedures of any sort. It's when you reach a point of, let's make life as good as it can be. I don't think there has to be a day and a date. There doesn't have to be a title. There just has to be a change of focus. And once your focus changes, it comes down to the heart. Once you accept that life may go on for another 10 years, it may go on for another 10 days. We don't know. Why should we? So let's enjoy the now. Does that help?
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Just being present, which is what we teach, right? Being present and being there for your animal every day and not getting caught up in the worry. And I see Carol is nodding her head. Yes. So that's a perfect segue into BrightHaven it's a BrightHaven menu for healing, and it works with your heart-centered animal hospice work. But what is that exactly? Can you tell us?
Easily, and over a period of quite a few hours. But basically, the menu for healing was created long before we gave it a name. As I mentioned before, over a 10-year span, different practitioners would come to BrightHaven and teach us different things. And we would learn about this, that, or the other. And we would gradually started to find the diet that worked. Wow, I would never have thought I could feed raw food to these animals. I always say I was dragged kicking and screaming. I was against almost every single part, especially veterinary homeopathy. However, that saved a life for us as a miracle. We had a miracle save of life with homeopathy. So it's like, wow. So that became part of everyday life. Herbs. We worked with Western herbs for a while, Eastern herbs for a while, and we started to see what fitted where. And for each animal, it would be, oh, we should try this, we should do that. And of course, Reiki joined. So, I mean, Reiki and homeopathy became really the mainstays of it. And I don't even remember, Carol may remember, did I already have the menu for healing when you joined, or were we still using the bits and pieces? I can't remember when it dawned on me.
I think it was there, but I think once we started expanding the education program in 2015, we really expanded on it and really focused in on how we highlighted what an important role that the menu for healing plays in all of BrightHaven's work.
And
Yes.
Carol, why don't you expand a little bit more on that since we have you? Because I know that you talk about palliative care and comfort care and
expand on
because of the menu that you were talking about the menu and the approach to animal hospice.
Well, I think Gail's hit some of the highlights of it, of course. I think it begins and ends with love.
Yes.
And that's why it's called the love sandwich. Homeopathy is in it. The path to natural dying. Reiki is in it. Considering titers instead of vaccines, just being aware of the pluses and minuses of vaccines. Raw feeding, that's a main priority of BrightHaven. Have I missed anything, Gail?
No, I don't think so. I think to me, it's just so beautiful the way it just appeared in life, and it grew and it became the menu for healing. And then we realized that love really belonged at the beginning and the end, so we called it the love sandwich. And that was many years ago, and here we are now, and it still is the cornerstone of our work. And it has gradually, actually, it hasn't changed, but over the years, we've actually developed like a part one and a part two for the main part of life. But then as we approach the end of this life, the menu for healing actually changes a little bit too. So it's really worked. It's a wonderful tool.
And I think it evolved over time, as Gail was saying, kind of trying things and where we were led. And I think the animals, once again, showed the way. They said, "Okay, well, this works. Yeah, get rid of that." And I think the animals are the how can we say it, the key designers of the menu for healing.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And so, we had a question here. What are some of the key ways that like Reiki helps, or that maybe homeopathy, like directly, how do they help in this hospice puzzle?
Well, I think homeopathy has some really important applications in this process because it's focuses on achieving balance of body, mind, and spirit and healing for the highest good of all concerned. And it's different from conventional medicine in the sense that with homeopathy and other holistic uh, protocols, you can have healing without a cure. And so I think that's one of the reasons it really fits in with BrightHaven's Heart Center Hospice, because we want to help promote healing, balance, and help the animal prepare for either returning to longer life on this plane or preparing for whatever, whatever's next and beyond. And I think some of the things we've learned about homeopathy is that we're not so afraid of symptoms. It seems like a lot of the focus of conventional medicine may be to suppress symptoms. Yet we have found with homeopathy that symptoms can provide you with a lot of good information. And we've also realized that sometimes when symptoms are suppressed, they might lead to other symptoms because the root cause of the symptom in the first place most likely hasn't been addressed yet. Right? And homeopathy tends to try to get to healing at the root level rather than just the symptoms. And I think, I do want to point out that, as part of our hospice care, and I think should be part of all hospice care for humans and non-humans, is pain management. And often we've had success in managing pain, particularly related to chronic illness, with homeopathy. Because we've also learned that less conventional medicines towards the end of the life may contribute to a gentler, more peaceful death. There's just less chemicals and such in the system. And I think, what else? Homeopathy. I think homeopathy just really, I just love the way it promotes healing for the highest good, and just, let's achieve balance. Let's help the animal live as well as possible, be the best they can possibly be, regardless of what's going on. And I think another point I'd like to mention, that what we've learned from the world of human hospice, and particularly from Barbara Carnes, who's was a hospice nurse for many, many years, and she's now a hospice educator, is that dying itself isn't painful. Now, the disease, if that's leading to death, if it has pain in it, you may still see that pain, but dying in and of itself isn't painful. And I just think that's an important, that, understanding that might help take a bit of the fear, like Gail mentioned, away from dying.
I love that, Carol. Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty profound. Because I think we all, if our animal is sick or in pain, we think the dying process is pain. So thank you for clarifying that. Gail, go ahead, Carol, please.
I didn't know if you want me to talk now more about how animal Reiki fits into the.
Yeah, I was going to turn it to Gail really fast, because I wanted Gail to talk a little bit about, what attracted you to animal Reiki. Because I know Kathleen came to you back in, I don't know if it was 2006 or 2007.
About then. I don't remember exactly.
I don't either. I think it might have been 2006, but
That's
fine. But just a little bit, like what about animal Reiki? And we all know how Kathleen teaches, hands off, and it's energetic and it's meditation based. But what attracted to you, and how has that helped your animals?
Wow. Actually, well, again, serendipity, when I look back over the years, originally, the lady who kind of led us into all the different holistic aspects, she actually practiced Reiki, and she would come. And the very first time I experienced Reiki, I walked into my kitchen, and Vicky was standing either side of a 23-year-old beautiful old lady Persian called Samantha. And she was just standing with her hands resting on the countertop beside her, just kind of being there. And I kind of walked around her, and I looked at her, and I thought, what in the heck is she doing? And I had no idea what it was. And so when she finally walked away, I said, what was that about? I mean, we tried, because she was also an animal communicator. So I was convinced everything she did was voodoo anyway. And she said, that's Reiki. And I said, what is it? She said, it's energy healing. And so I asked her some questions, and she said to me, Gail, you have a lot going on at the moment. I sense you have a lot to learn, and BrightHaven's headed in a wonderful direction. And I know that your teacher will come. Your teacher will come when the moment is right and you are ready. And boy, I never came across Reiki again until Kathleen walked through my door that day.
That's
And
incredible.
it was amazing, absolutely just astonishing. And that day was Kathleen was actually looking to start her own education out, she was looking for a location for her school. And we had decided, okay, we need to start teaching and we need to bring other people in to teach. And Kathleen was the first person that called me and said, I'm interested in using your location. Would you be interested? And I was like, oh my word, this is fascinating. And so Kathleen came that day, and when she did a tour, and for her it was a novel experience, the same as for so many of the volunteers that I kind of took for granted over the years sometimes. And they would walk through the door and be greeted by two little dogs in wheelchairs and a couple of cats scooting on their bottoms. And people would come in, and I think Kathleen was the same. And it's like, oh my word, what is this place? And then there was Fraser, the cat, who was in his early 30s by then, and he had cancer, and his side of his face looked absolutely awful. But he was young at heart. He was young. He wasn't an old man inside of himself. And he loved leather, and he also loved jeans. And he loved to play still. And he met Kathleen at the door, and he started clawing on her shoes and her jeans, and she was like, oh. So I said, come on in. Let's take you around and we'll do a tour. And so she met cats and dogs and the outdoor animals. And, I mean, some were sitting in their beds peacefully, some were playing, some were just lying where they were. It was a very different mix with a very different vibe. And then we finished the tour, and I said, would you like a cup of tea? And we'll sit and we'll have a talk and see where this goes. And we sat down, and she said, oh my goodness, what an amazing experience that was. And I've learned one of the biggest lessons ever today. She said, I've learned to see with my heart instead of my eyes. And that comes to me every single day of my life. That was one of the biggest experiences, because it was so true. Because when you're looking at illness for humans or animals, when you're looking at disease, which is out and out of balance state, our eyes tell us what we need to know, what we want to know. But if we rely on that without bringing our heart in, we have a different feeling for the whole situation.
Well, I remember, it is shocking when you would go into BrightHaven in Santa Rosa, because you aren't used to seeing these animals. And it was so beautiful to know that these animals that society would otherwise throw away were actually thriving at BrightHaven. And when I took my first Reiki class there, it was back when we could, you could have one or two people staying at the property. And I was lucky enough to be able to do that for my level 1. And Patty was there. Patty, the German
Yes.
Shepherd that had come from a hoarding situation. So why don't you tell Patty's story, and then I'll say what I got out of that.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So Patty was a German Shepherd. The day she arrived, I remember she came in through our back entrance and through the garden, and she'd only come in a few steps before Mr. Woody, who was a large, tubby, ginger gentleman feline. He saw her coming, and he walked straight up. He marched straight up, stood up on his hind legs, and smacked her over the head. And she cowered. Oh, this poor, I mean, she was really nervous of cats. And, you know, with 100 cats in the house, it's like, ooh. She was very shy and quiet. And then gradually she started to come out of her shell. She was an adorable, adorable dog. She and Joey, who was the Chihuahua in a wheelchair that had a sheriff's badge, which will tell you his personality, they became firm friends. Um, and then the day came when Patty collapsed, and she was clearly approaching the end of her life. She was still joyful, she was still eating and drinking, but her legs wouldn't work. And so we purchased an elevated dog bed. Actually, we didn't. I think we already had one in the garden, and we brought it in and we cleaned it up, and it was about 9 inches off the floor, which was wonderful because in hindsight, it helped the humans from bending to the floor all the time to her, and it helped the animals because they could actually get up and be with her. And her her fear of cats had never really gone away. However, she went down, we made a bed, we layered the bedding for incontinence just in case we needed it, and we made her comfortable. And within minutes, she had 6 cats surrounding her. And she lay there in that bed until the day she died. And she died surrounded in cats and Joey. And she just taught us so many beautiful lessons.
She was quite amazing because when I got there, she was had already been, you know, put on the bed and she had collapsed, so she had no movement. But at that time, she was very much nearing the end of life. She was panting, and you had to give her water and you had to like hand feed her and then and express her bowels and all these things. And I remember thinking, thinking, oh my gosh, this dog should be put down. Look at, she's in so much pain, and this, what is this? And then through the weekend of Reiki, of animal Reiki, realizing how happy she was, you could just feel her joy once you got out of your head. And I remember you were saying, I think it's probably only going to be a few more days. And she ended up living, I want to say like at least a month more. And
Yeah.
it was really, I remember you saying that you felt like she was staying because it was the first time that she had that kind of attention and love. And it was the most beautiful experience. And for me, that was my lesson about hospice and how beautiful it can be and what you can give to an animal that was otherwise came from a horrific situation where she didn't get a lot of love and attention, to now she's ending her life surrounded by these animals. And also I felt another really important lesson about that was exactly what you were just saying, Gail, how the cats were surrounding her, and what a lesson that was. They weren't trying to fix or heal her with their little kitty paws. They were holding space, and it was so powerful and such a huge lesson. It's like, wow, we don't have to try and change or fix, but what's really important, what's really powerful is holding space.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, we have so many, oh my God, so many hundreds of stories. And over and over and over, each one is a lesson that we learn from an animal, a demonstration of something we already knew, but you don't think about these things in daily life until you're faced with them and reminded. And that's what our animals are. They're here to teach us, to show us, to lead the way.
Thank you. I love that so much. And Carol, I want to.
Oh, I just thought of
Yeah.
another thing.
Yes, please.
It's just a funny little ending note to Patty's story. Um, the evening that Patty died, Richard and I had finally sat ourselves down. We'd had dinner on our laps and we had the television on. And I was getting up and checking on Patty and sitting back down again, and getting up and checking on Patty and sitting with her and then sitting down again. And she was okay. She wasn't doing anything to make me think that she was dying. And so eventually I went and just sat back down with Richard. And then, I don't know, about a little while later, the phone rang. So I got up and I went to answer the phone. And as I walked toward, though you remember where our phone was, by the kitchen, and Patty was down beside the couch. As I walked past Patty to go to the phone, I turned my head and she was dying. She literally lifted her head and looked at me, and I ran to her, put my arms around her, and she died in my arms. And Richard had got up to follow me. He went to the phone, picked up the phone, and there was no one there. And to me, that was just, it just spoke volumes.
Yeah.
She wanted us to be with her, and she did what she needed to do. But that phone call was just absolutely an amazing thing.
Isn't that just so amazing? The power of animals. We only just listen and just be what they are capable is just amazing. Thank you so much for that ending, Gail. Because I had forgotten that part of when she was passing in that phone call. She was just such a powerful little teacher for all of us in that class, and it was a big class. It was probably 12 or 13 people, and she got so much that weekend, and we all got so much out of that. And so, Carol, I want to turn it over to you for a minute and just ask you, what hospice or BrightHaven's heart-centered approach to hospice care is very unique. And so what are the benefits of this, and how can we do what BrightHaven does with our own animals?
I think that some of the key benefits have been touched on already, but I think a lot of it is just learning to be present with love. As you were saying, holding space, trying to open one's heart to just take in what's unfolding, enjoy the profound connection that you and your beloved animal can share, be open to life lessons. And there's some great ones, that usually come about during this time of life, that have been, some of which have been shared today. And I think it also is an opportunity for people to kind of check in with themselves what their beliefs are, their own personal beliefs are about life, death, what may or may not come beyond, to learn to understand themselves better. And I think another important aspect of BrightHaven's hospice care approach is that we prioritize self-care, that for the caregiver, yes, and the family. And it's just like the old adage, when you're getting ready to take off, and the flight attendant says, if you need to put on an air mask, do yours first before the person that, before helping another. And it's the same thing as why self-care is so important, because you can't give from an empty vessel. You can't be there for another if you're just completely depleted. And I think one of our key tenets of self-care is that just remember that you're doing the best that you can, and you're doing it with love, and that's enough. Your animal knows you're doing it with love, and that's enough. Because I think people put so much on them. Oh, I should try, do this and that, and I got to do this and the other. And I think what's more important is just to be there as physically and emotionally and spiritually with the animal as much as possible.
That's so powerful. Thank you so much.
On that note, let me add a little bit to that as well, because I think it comes up for me so often in consultations, and I say to people, we all have the fear, we all have the anguish, we all have the tears, but so many people have told me, and I know I've done it myself in the past, we're getting close to the end of life. I'm worrying about the future. I'm thinking about the past and the would have, could haves. And here I am in the bathroom or in the kitchen doing the washing up while my beloved is in the living room. And I'm crying, and I'll pull myself together before I go back. And I say, don't do that. Do you seriously think that your animal doesn't know that you're upset? Animals, well, let's face it, dog speaks dog, cat speaks cat. They actually tend to speak each other's languages fairly well. Humans, we speak human for the most part. And our animals know what's going on. They know what we're thinking and feeling. So for us to just go be with them when we feel sad and emotional, and either put our arms around with them or sit with them, whatever's comfortable for them, and share it. That's what it's all about. Sharing is caring and living and loving. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No, no, that was
sorry.
really important. Thank you so much for that.
Well, and I just
Go
thought
ahead.
I'd add that, you know, animals speak energy,
Yeah.
and that's where I think Reiki is such a tremendous help throughout this process, because it's just a way to communicate and be there for your beloved on a totally different level. And I think some humans are better at communicating via energy, you know, and do it more often than others or whatever. But I think that's how where we can learn a lot from animals is try to tune into the energy, and then we'll, you know, might help us to better understand what they're trying to communicate. Like my dog sitting on my lap staring at me. So
I love that. Well, I know you two have two really important stories. But before we get to those, since we are kind of coming to time, Carol, I know you have a hard stop.
I'll push that out.
Okay,
Don't worry about
let's
it.
what are a few key takeaways that you want people to know about animal hospice?
Um,
I mean, you kind of touched on them already, but
Yeah.
sum it up.
I think a few of the key takeaways are that it's an excellent opportunity for a life-changing experience. I also, you know, we understand at Brighthaven that it's not the right situation for every animal and every family
Right.
in every circumstance. So, you know, we of course don't want people to feel pressure that, oh, you know, this is the way you have to do it, because it just depends on the individual situation. But I don't know. I think it's a chance for deeper connection, personal growth, love, understanding more about life, death, the circle of life, and one's beliefs. Gail, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
One thing that comes to me, which sounds kind of silly, but I find it very, very, very helpful, very supportive. And that is, I don't know if somebody ever said this to me or it dawned on me one day or where it came from, but we tend to lean so heavily on medicine, whatever kind it is. I'm not saying conventional or holistic, but we rely on the doing, the giving, the all of this stuff so that we can heal. However, we tend to neglect the fact that there is another doctor that is very rarely acknowledged or talked about, and that's Dr. Mother Nature. And sometimes, if we do the best we can and we step back, Mother Nature will do the job and everything will turn out beautifully. And it's just at times when there is no more to do, particularly in the vigil, a time during the dying process where everything is calm and gentle and quiet. And yet, because of the human mind and the human got to, oh my God, what do I do now? He's lying there really peacefully and sleeping, and here am I still wound up and wanting to do. Again, it's Mother Nature is in control now. There's a process, there's a system, and now you can just be here and be supportive and be there.
Love
I
that.
think that's a good one. Actually, I love Carol has, I know the story, you know, the story of when you were in bed with Silver. That
Oh,
always comes back to me. That I think that's a really important one.
Oh, please share, Carol.
yeah, no, I'd love to. So, it was a few days before Silver and, you know, transitioned, and I was laying on the bed next to her, and I suddenly got nervous, and I thought, I am lying next to a dying dog. You know, it scared me. And then just as quickly as that thought came, it was replaced with, no, she's fully alive. She's still alive completely until she's transitioned. And she deserves all the love, comfort, support, dignity for however longer she has. But to me, it was just a profound lesson in, that taught me a being is fully alive until they've transitioned. And then that's kind of BrightHaven's approach about living well through the last breath. That's what we focus on. Bring love, bring joy, do the best you can with what you've got. Try different things, have laughs together, have tears together, take care of yourself. Just it's a part of life. It's nothing to fear. It's all unfolding as it should. It's a great opportunity to learn and practice more acceptance, and also back to the Reiki focus of seeing with the heart rather than the eyes, and knowing that no matter what, even when things in the scariest moments, all is well. And
Yes.
when you're in that healing and that lovely Reiki space and just connected, you're connecting to the inner being that's perfection. So you look beyond the frail body, the weak body, or whatever, and just connecting to the perfection of another from the perfection in you. And that's one of the things I just love so much. One of the many things I love about Reiki is just that focus.
Well, I love that story about Silver, how you had that realization about just seeing her, she's still vital inside this body. And I know that you have many stories at BrightHaven where animals come there possibly to die, and then they have a resurgence of vitality. And I don't know if which one of you wants to kind of touch on that.
Oh, I'm sure Gail, I'm sure you have a couple of stories you can.
Oh, I've always got stories. I mean, it's hard. Jesus. I mean, obviously Joey and Fraser's stories are the most kind of mind-boggling. Joey, or not, well, no, let's actually Ollie probably would supersede Joey. Ollie was a dachshund. He came to us when he was 15 years old. His lovely lady owner was 93 years old, and she couldn't take care of him anymore. And basically his back collapsed. He had surgery, and they said he might function with a wheelchair, but he didn't have long, and she just couldn't do it. So he came to live with us. And this dog was unbelievable. I mean, he came to us to die at the age of 15, and he died. Actually, he had high fevers, he had various problems as we went through. But each time he bounced back, he got stronger. He maybe got a few more hair the same color as mine, but he bounced back. His veterinarian, his homeopathic veterinarian, was absolutely wonderful, and she was just like, oh my God, not again. And he would have fevers as high as 106 and come back from them. And there he was. And when he finally died at the age of 24, even now I look back and think, wow, he just taught us so much about all the well, this is why Carol's just given them that wonderful overview of what hospice is for us. And these particular animals are what hospice is for us. They demonstrated the whole thing by not putting a label on life, not putting an age on it, not caring whether they walk on 2 legs or 4 or 8. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's what you give and take and how you help, perhaps, in this lifetime. I think that's it.
I love that. Thank you so much. And Carol, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything more to piggyback on that or not.
Yeah, I feel like No, I don't really have anything to add to that.
I do have one more Reiki thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
And
have a
I know you have a story about Nigel too, and I want you to share that. And I don't know if that's the one you're
Oh,
going to share.
Nigel? No, not really. No, Nigel's just a little quick because Nigel was a little bit like Mr. Woody. He was an orange old man and he was very emaciated. He came to us to die. Um, and he had a lovely round orange face, the prettiest little thing. But then he had this huge but very emaciated body and thin stick legs. I mean, he was quite funny. Um, and he stayed in bed. He had a low-level bed on the floor. He had his area, and he would totter across the floor here and there and back to bed. He was a sweet, sweet old man. And I came in one day. I walked through the kitchen and with the living room right ahead of me. And as I walked in, there was Nigel, racing, literally kind of galloping, very ungainly, across the floor with a toy mouse. And there was this huge joy coming out of this old boy who could barely walk, who literally fell over with the mouse. And I just stood there and cried. And that was just a little moment in a great long history of so many of those little moments.
Well, we are coming to the end, and I know we have some more questions, but really quickly, and then, well, we'll get to that in just a second. But before we get to our open Q&A and some more stories, what type of resources do you have to help pet parents and animal caregivers with aging or terminally ill animals? And I know that we have the one link that I'm going to reprint or repost because I know that we had some more people join us. But what other resources?
Well, we have on our website, which is brighthaven.org, we have a variety of caregiver resources, including online learning, publications. We have an animal caregiver FAQ page. We have an animal education page that contains links to other related information. So we try to consolidate everything in an orderly way. And if people can go to the top nav caregiver resources, they'll be able to find things. Let's see, what else do we have to offer? The one thing I might mention, if people have enjoyed the stories we've shared today, and I hope that they do, Gail and I co-wrote a book called Grateful for Animals, Spiritual Comfort and Wisdom in Life's Last Chapter. And it focuses on the wonderful wisdom we've learned from animals. It strives to highlight their spiritual significance and how animals can really show humans how to lead a more compassionate, authentic life. And since we all know we're kind of living through some chaotic times here on Earth right now, the wisdom of the animals may be helpful to people on that journey.
Definitely.
And then we also are on Facebook, but I think, people will be able to find a lot of helpful information on our website.
The website is really quite incredible. It's so rich with information. And of course, Gail is so generous, and Carol too, with their information and their support. So we will have lots of links in the recap email. And again, I did put the link to the BrightHaven menu, and then it's brighthaven.org is the website. But I will, because I know that we had a couple more people just enter, and we'll put the BrightHaven menu. And if you go to the menu, you're definitely going to be linked to all the other things. And so I would like to get really quickly to some of the comments that we have in the chat, because we had some really nice ones here. and Beth Beauchamp said that you are just such an amazing gift to the animals, Gail, to Reiki, and to us. So thank you. And then we had Jennifer says, Gail, it's so lovely to see you. Leah, Gail, Carol, thank you for a beautiful time together. So many tears from Patty. I don't have my glasses on. I probably need to get them on. Patty Boo, Mariah, and to all of how we learn from all of our angels and earthling animals and love that is real. And she also said, human and animal hospice share the same compassion of living well to the end. Gail, as you said, shifting from cure to comfort and acceptance while bringing comfort and dignity as well to the last breath. How our animals teach us to be in the meowment and sharing love and light all here. And then Jessica says, thank you for sharing your experiences. I appreciate what I learned today. Beth said, thank you so much, Gail and Carol. Thank you for your love and devotion to the animals. So inspirational. And then Monica said, this is such a wonderful talk. I'm really enjoying it. Thank you, girls. And she says, I think it's because death is so sad, but at the same time, so powerful and deep and can thought us could teach us so much about love. And it did for me a few times. I know that Monica had a really profound passing of a couple of the dogs. Monica, Carol, and Gail is on staff at a shelter in Croatia where they help 500 dogs. So it's very chaotic and very hard work. But she took the animal Reiki for Reiki practitioners class. And since then, she's been a member of Sarah and she comes to all of these calls and she's found them really helpful. So it's really beautiful that she's here and that she's learning so much. And yeah, this is what makes our community so great. Oh, there's Kelly. Thank you, Gail, Carol, and Leah. Topic is hitting hard today, having recently said goodbye to our girl, Elsie. Yeah, Kelly, Kelly, I don't know if you want to unmute. Kelly is a good friend of Gail's as well, and Carol. But if you want to unmute Kelly and come on and just share a little bit, because one of her heart animals just passed away. So I'm not sure.
Yes, we had the vet come to the house, and so it was a really different experience with Elsie because we tried to keep her comfortable for a long time, but she needed assistance, and so it was hard for the vet to find her vein because she had gotten so thin. And it took a long time actually after the shots for Elsie's heart to stop. But I was with her on the bed and after everything was quiet, then I brought Bo up, our other cat, and he laid across from her and just watched her for a little bit. And it was really beautiful. I, kind of stepped behind him and observed his response. And we had 3 birds come and sit on the railing outside the room, just looking in. And I kept watching Bo, like looking over Elsie's head. It was, and they just gave him as much time as he needed. And then he just left when he was ready, but he was just stretched out, watching Elsie. So, that's the 3rd time we've had the vet come to the house. And so sometimes it's hard, like right now, I had a cat that, threw a clot. And it was the worst thing I ever experienced because we had to take him to the vet and he was only 10 minutes away from the vet. This cat we have now could have the same problem, but it's a long 40-minute drive. And so, I was thinking about what you were saying about just holding them and loving them and, being in the space with them, a healing space with them and letting nature take its course. It's just the fear of hearing that cry, so difficult to sit with. Elsie, thankfully, was very quiet and peaceful. And all the other, the 2 other cats we had here were as well. So, yeah, I really appreciate all that you said. And I remember some of those guys, some of those animals, visiting BrightHaven. And yeah, thank you. It was a great topic.
Well, and also, Kelly, as you're saying that, and I would love for Gail to talk on this as well as, you say that you won't want to go through that painful thing, but it's like, we don't know that it would be painful. It might even be really beautiful too. So Gail, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I think the word in there to be addressed is painful, because dying the process of dying, we know from the world of humans, it's not painful. Death is not painful. What is painful is what has been going on. And in the best circumstances, and obviously, as Kelly was talking, can't always have the best circumstance, pain will be controlled, but acute sudden pain that can't be controlled is the one, obviously, that we do fear. And there's probably not a single person in the world that wouldn't fear that. We just have to take each moment as it comes and do our best. Again, we say it over and over. We have to do our best with love and forgive ourselves for what we can't do. We can do what we can, and never judge. It's the judgment that we have for ourselves that can be the difficult part of grieving. We are going to be sad. We are going to be grieving. We're going to be grieving from the minute that we feel that life may be ending at some point in the near or even the far future. We feel that in our hearts. And it morphs and changes, and grief never leaves us. However long ago a loved one died, that grief has grown, it's changed, it's visited us sometimes, more often, not often, but it's something that we live with, and we all live with it in different ways. I think we hold it in our hearts, and it's part of who we are. I know I've been asked over and over again, how on earth could have done what you did and basically not fall apart with grief? And I think that's a lesson that, again, I must have learned from animals, because I have grieved, but I think I've grieved with them more than after them. We've grieved together before they've left. And because I guess over the years, and with Reiki and other energy learning, I don't feel, as I did many years ago, that death is the end. Now I know that there's more. I know that in my heart, and I feel them. And sometimes there are signs or conversations or this or that just reassure us that they're still there. They're still there. They still care. And sometimes they come back dressed in other clothes.
Thank you, Kelly, for sharing and for.
I just want to thank Gail, because learning from her early on to have the other animals attend when an animal is passing was really important. And I've been able to put that into action every time. And that for me also made a big difference. So I appreciate, that early lesson from you, Gail.
Well, thank you. Another thing that had literally popped into my mind, and what popped into my mind is a photograph that I came across recently that reminded me of a practice that I was horrified when it was first kind of suggested. And the photograph that came recently was Carol sitting at the table on our patio, offering Reiki to Sam the cat, who had died a couple of days previously. And that was our 3-day ceremony that evolved over time, where we honored the animals. I still do it now, no matter how big or small they are, whether they're a mouse or a 800-pound pig, we would honor them. We would put them in a basket or on a bed, whatever fitted them, and surround it with flowers and candles. And we would follow this, we called it the 3-day process, to honor the being. And at first, when volunteers would come to BrightHaven, they would be like, there's a dead dog on the table out. Oh God, this is embarrassing. This is awful. But as they started to understand, and again, it's this human fear of death, but the body is the physical house that we live in. It isn't us. And so when you look at it from that approach, we want to honor this house that housed our loved one for so long. We don't want to say goodbye to it so quickly. We want to honor it. And Carol would spend endless hours with animals that were either approaching or dying or dead. And it just, eventually, it just was so normal for us, so normal. And I guess it still is. It's just kind of what we do, and it feels the right natural thing to do.
Thank you, Gail. And I know we're coming on time. I would like to ask Mary Cheers had sent in a question. She has a 17-year-old cat that has been in early renal failure for 5 years. She gives her sub-Q fluids and takes her to a holistic vet. She is currently peeing on her carpet 2 feet from the litter box. Is she trying to tell me she is ready to leave?
I would say no, absolutely not. Gosh, what a wonderful, I mean, this is the BrightHaven menu for healing that you've been following. You've done it pretty much the story of how our menu for healing developed. I would say she's probably nearing the end of her existence. To be in chronic renal failure for 5 years is a pretty amazing achievement. It sounds like she's still in it to win it. She's living her life. She's in each day. And I think, if you look at it a little lightly, maybe her litter box or where she goes to the bathroom needs to be a little closer to where she's resting. Maybe she can't quite get to it in time. Let's put the human and the animal side by side in the conversation. I know my mum wet herself quite often as she was approaching the kind of hospice stage of her life. And we had accidents. They're normal. You just don't have the muscle strength that you once did. So I don't think that just that on its own would tell me that she's close to the end of life or that she wants to die.
Thank you. I really
I
appreciate
don't know if that helps, but
yeah, I know. I'm sure that helps a lot. Just really quickly, I'm going to call on Vanna to unmute, and she had something she wanted to share. But I wanted to say Emily Comstock put 4 hearts to support that Kelly was sharing what you were sharing, Gail. And then Michelle says, I'm so grateful for this gathering today. Thank you, Gail and Carol, for so many notable words of wisdom. Gail supported me with my cat Dora's end of life, and now Gail is supporting her with her dog Kona as she is thriving in life with cancer. I love, Michelle, how you, and it's Michelle Johnson, how you stated she is thriving in life with cancer. So thank you. So yes, Vanna.
Oh, hi, everybody. Hi, Gail.
Hello.
I haven't seen you for a while. Talk to you. I just wanted to say that when I took the 3-day course, 2 or 3 day course, I don't know when that was, a long time ago. Maybe you were there, Leah. I'm not sure. But it really changed my life. And I came away from it with things that still are part of my consciousness every day. I'm even getting teary. But I think what I got from it too, personally, was a different kind of appreciation for what's going on around the time that the pet is being ready to pass. And Homer was a 14-year-old basset hound who came to me blind. He never saw where he lived. He never saw his house. He lived for 9 years here, and his decline was slow. Towards the end of his life, and it came from the experience at BrightHaven, the end of his life, I was able to see other things happening, like birds came in the house one day towards the end, and I said to myself, this was my interpretation. It's ready for him. It sounds like maybe it's ready for him to fly away. That was kind of what came into my mind. And so just becoming aware of other things that happen, and at the time of his passing, and I do this with all my pets now, not only am I talking to them and being with them and aware of all of these things, but when the passing happens, I immediately write a letter from the pet to me. And it's really profound, the kinds of things that I get back, things that I guess I observed. Who knows, right? Because this is all spiritual stuff. But they will, like Homer said, did you see the butterfly that was there this morning? Did you see that white butterfly? And I'll go like, I think I might have seen a butterfly. My point is that it changed my spiritual existence with my animals and more broadly too. So I just am so grateful that I was there in Santa Rosa and spent that weekend. The last thing I'll say, Gail, you might remember this. The weekend I was there was the weekend that there was a horse that collapsed in the field that we thought was, you remember that? And then there was somebody came and did some Reiki, and the horse got up. I don't know if you wanted to comment on that, but that was a memory for sure of that weekend for me.
Well, I don't know if there's time. Absolutely. I think that must have been, oh my goodness me, what a lesson. I mean, this horse provided so many people with so many lessons. Her name was Nikki, and she was as old as the hills. She was another emaciated old lady. She started when her decline started. In fact, I remember one day, yeah, there's another part. One day I remember it was a weekend and Kathleen was teaching Reiki, and she was out in the pasture, and she was taking some students out, and she'd gone out, and there was I tidying the house and for when they all came back in, and Kathleen came in and she said, we need some help because every time I try to do Reiki, Nikki is going to fall over. So it's like, I need to hold her up. We need some help. And Nikki was that weak, but that determined. And then finally she did go down, and she did her. I've got some photographs of, I think one morning we had 8 people, most of them were men, thankfully, who came to help us because Nikki was adamant. She wasn't asking to die, she was asking to get up. And of course, trying to lift a horse to their feet is not an easy feat. And so, we had volunteers who say, just call me the minute and I'll be there. And we would get her up on her feet. And eventually the time came when she was more leaning on the volunteers than actually able to stand on her own. And she finally ended up lying down, and we took care of her until the end. But she brought us so much joy and so much learning. She had 2 vets. She had a holistic vet and a conventional vet. We made her comfortable in the pasture. She had sub-Q fluid, well, actually she had IV fluids. We parked like a little trailer behind her so that we could go in and out, we could sleep in it, and we could be there for her. It was a huge endeavor, but it was so worthwhile.
Yeah.
And another one for coming from what Vanna was talking about is when another of our horses, Copy, died. Richard was lying with him with his arms around him, and Copy was very, very close to the end, very, very close. I came racing back from the house, and I was just sitting down there with them. And as Copy died, he's a huge horse with this huge head. He leant his head back, and as he was leaning backwards, this bird flew in, this huge bird, and he flew in. It was a dove, and he landed, and he stood there. And as Copy lifted his head up, the bird looked at the horse, and he turned around and he flew off to the west, and Copy died. And it was
I know.
oh my goodness. But yes, birds and butterflies.
Birds and butterflies, yeah.
Thank you so much, Vanna. I really appreciate you sharing that. So I don't know if anyone else has any comments or want to share, or Carol, if you want to close off. I don't know if you were able to share all of Silver's story. I know that it's a really profound story and you wrote a book about it. And if you want to talk a little bit more about that, or if you have anything more to share.
I was just thinking when we're talking about birds and butterflies, but when Silver was, approaching death, I would tell her, well, just run to Martin. He's waiting for you. That's my late husband. And so after she died very, very, very peacefully out in the little garden there. Because I lived on the BrightHaven property, gratefully so, for a little over 4 years. And she was out in the garden, and not long after she died, this big, beautiful, I think it was black spotted butterfly came around the corner. And Vicky, who ran the horse sanctuary, said, I've never seen a butterfly like that here. And I said, it's Martin saying he's got her.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. I love that.
Sorry.
Thank you for sharing that, Carol. That's so beautiful. So many beautiful stories. We can just, and the common theme here is, the lessons and teachings these animals bring us. And if only we're open to it, and only if we're open to being willing to just be in that beautiful space of love and joy with them.
Yeah, it's kind of suspending thought and rationale and just connect on the spiritual level and just be. And
Yeah.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much. I don't know if you have any closing words that you want to share with us before we have to end. It's so hard to end these because it's like, I just want to keep. Oh, Ella raised her hand. Yes, Ella. Hi.
Yeah, hi. So I'm trained with Kathleen,
Mhm.
of course, but I'm also trained with Gail. So I just finished my hospice training. Hopefully, it's still out for for the last paper, but I hope so. And I think what's for me the most, how this brings it together is it's humbling. Both of it is incredible humbling, is incredible putting the ego aside, putting the other knowledge aside, and following with Reiki and with hospice, following the animals, following nature, following what's beyond us. So this was the most touching things, or also where it meets for me, Reiki and the hospice training. Yeah, it's this point of humbling and becoming aware where the knowledge really is and what it really means. So, and the respect for the animals and their wisdom. Just wanted to share this.
I'm so glad you did, Ella. That's beautiful. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the course, because it is a self-study course, and it would be a wonderful thing if any of you are interested in hospice. Again, go to brighthaven.org and you can learn more about the class. So thank you so much, Ella. Appreciate that. And anything else before we have to go?
I think Ella ended it beautifully.
Yes, I was just going to say the same thing. That was perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I've got just a couple more chats. Monica, who's in Croatia, said, when my heart dog, and the dog's name was Heart, I think this is, it died. Her name was Heart. And she taught me what the Let Animals Lead method is all about. The next day, there was a sign on the sky, and she put the picture, and it's a heart of a cloud.
Oh.
And just thank you so much for sharing that, Monica, and for, again, spreading Heart's beautiful spirit. And then Shala said, thank you so much for this heartwarming session today and all these beautiful stories and joyful memories of my own animals and their lessons. Much love to you all. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Gail and Carol, for being here and for sharing this beautiful method of helping our animals transition to their next stage, because I, like you, Gail, believe that they're just going to their next thing. And that's why sometimes they're looking at us like, why are you so sad? I'm actually getting out of here. I'm leaving the body. I'm gonna go have some fun. And so thank you so much. So I don't know if you have any last words. And Ella, just really quickly, Ella, thank you so much. So grateful to you for unmuting and coming on and saying what you did. So Carolyn, sorry.
No, all I can say is thank you to everyone who is here or will listen to this recording, and for your interest in BrightHaven and our work. And Leah, thank you for inviting us to share with your audience.
Thank you.
Yes, ditto. You're a wonderful hostess, Leah. Thank you. Thank you so much. And
Thank
to
you.
everybody, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And oh my gosh, we're at noon and we still have 30 people on the call. So this is great. And I know it was a really interesting topic. And thank you both so much. And as I said, we will do a recap, and Carol's going to give me some links that we will be providing to all of you. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for your support of not only the animals, but of BrightHaven and the wonderful work Carol and Gail are doing. So goodbye, everyone. Have a beautiful week. Bye.